All right, let's talk about one of the most chilling and, honestly, one of the most persistent mysteries in all of history. We're about to get into a story that feels like it was ripped right out of a horror movie. But believe me, it is all too real. We're talking about the lost colony of Roanoke. Nomi, really think about that for a second. An entire community. You've got men, women, children, families. And one day they just stop existing. They're there, they're building their lives, and the next, poof, they're gone. And this is the part that is just so unbelievably creepy, the part that still gives historians nightmares. There was no sign of a fight, no bodies left behind, nothing at all to explain what happened. The only thing left was this profound, eerie silence. That's how many people we're talking about. 117 souls. A whole colonial settlement completely wiped off the map. It's a number that's been haunting us for more than 400 years. And I know it sounds absolutely unbelievable, but this isn't some campfire story. This is a real, genuine chapter in American history. It's one of the founding mysteries of the New World, a story that started with so much hope and ends with a giant question mark that we've never been able to erase. So, to really get how it all went so terribly wrong, you gotta go back to the beginning. Let's take a look at how this colony, which was filled with so much promise, even got its start. Okay, so here's the quick breakdown. It's 1587, and these English settlers land on Roanoke Island, totally ready to build a new life. But pretty quickly, they start running out of supplies. So their leader, a guy named John White, sails back to England for what he thinks is going to be a quick resupply run. But then, war breaks out, and that quick trip turns into 3 long, agonizing years. When he finally gets back in 1590, he has absolutely no idea what he's about to walk into. Can you imagine what that journey back was like? After 3 years, John White must have been just buzzing with anticipation. I mean, he wasn't just the governor. His own daughter and his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas, they were there. He was probably picturing this bustling, successful town. But what was waiting for him was the exact opposite of everything he'd hoped for. This, right here, is where the story takes a sharp turn into darkness and mystery. What he found was nothing. A ghost town. The very homes he'd helped build were just standing there, empty. The streets were completely silent. The entire settlement had been totally and utterly abandoned. Now, here's a really key detail. The place wasn't destroyed. It wasn't burned down or ransacked. The houses, and even the defensive wall around the settlement, had been carefully taken apart. This doesn't look like people running for their lives in a panic. It looks like an organized, planned departure. So they left on purpose. But where did they go? In all that emptiness, with no people and zero signs of a fight, White and his men found just one thing. One single, tantalizing, and in the end, incredibly frustrating clue. A kind of message. Carved into one of the wooden posts of the dismantled fort was a single word. CROATOAN. That's it. No other message, no crosses, which was the agreed-upon distress signal. Just that one cryptic word. Now, CROATOAN wasn't just some random word. It was the name of an island just south of them. We call it Hatteras Island today. And it was also the name of the Native American tribe that lived there, a tribe that the colonists were actually on good terms with. It seemed like a pretty clear sign, right? Hey, this is where we went. And that one word, CROATOAN, has fueled literally centuries of arguments, theories, and wild speculation. So what are the leading ideas? What could have possibly happened to 117 people? Well, most of the explanations really boil down to 3 main possibilities. The first and most obvious one, because of that clue, is that they went to live with a local tribe. The others, well, they suggest a much more violent end. Maybe they were attacked, or maybe they were forced to flee and just couldn't survive out in the wilderness. Okay, so you have these 2 main camps. The assimilation theory seems to make the most sense. I mean, the way they took the settlement apart suggests they weren't in a rush. Maybe facing starvation, they just decided to pack up and join the Croatoan people. But then you've got the attack theory, which you really can't ignore. The English had tense relationships with some of the other local tribes. And just because there were no bodies doesn't mean there wasn't a fight. It could just mean they were captured or chased far away from their homes. For every logical theory, there's just this nagging feeling that something isn't right. The story is just too clean. The disappearance is too complete. And that leads some people to wonder if the real answer is something beyond our normal understanding of history. And this brings us to what you might call the darker theory. Not an attack, not assimilation, but an event. Something unexplained and maybe even unexplainable that just removed them from reality. Now, of course, that's pure speculation, but it really speaks to the profound, total void at the center of this mystery. And here's the craziest part. After all this time, after countless archaeological digs, new technologies, historical deep dives, we are no closer to knowing the truth. No mass grave has ever been found. No definitive proof for any single theory has ever surfaced. The trail went cold in 1590, and it's stayed that way ever since. The fate of those 117 men, women, and children is just locked away, one of history's great cold cases. It's a snapshot of a hopeful beginning, followed by a completely silent, completely empty end. And maybe that's the most haunting thing about the Roanoke story. It reminds you that sometimes the line between being here and being gone can be wiped away without a single trace, leaving nothing behind but a whispered word on a post and a question that maybe will never, ever be answered.